Hello and welcome back to my workshop, where today I'm going to give you an update on all the latest progress on the rebuild of Topley.
Hi, I'm Ellis Clark. At Ellis Clark Trains we specialise in locomotives and rolling stock from N gauge all the way up to the larger scales. We're well known for our pre-owned range, where we offer some of the very best items that have been hand selected by our team. Our latest pre-owned stock is uploaded daily, which can be found on the new arrivals page on our website. We also sell our own range of models, such as our popular Black 5s and Presslow wagons, as well as our ever-increasing range of 00 gauge products. Located in Skipton, our showroom is open 6 days a week, so come on in for a friendly brew and a chat. For more information, visit ellisclarktrains.com.
So welcome back to Topley, which as you can see has moved on quite considerably, even just in front of me here on the station area. Now probably the most obvious change is the fact there is no longer a set of platforms here. You might remember previously a set of platforms here with all the station buildings and things as well. All that's been completely taken out, all the track's been replaced as well, so I've taken out all the original timber sleepered track and replaced it all with concrete sleepered track as well. And there have also been some significant changes to the track plan as well, which will be, hopefully, if you've been watching Topley for quite a little while, fairly obvious to you as well. But to put things in a nutshell, essentially we've got the same double track mainline formation that used to be through the station. We've also got the rear loop, which has actually been extended by another 3 feet as well, and also pulled further away from the main line to create more space for a platform here between the main lines and the loop. And then I've just got at the moment the starting point of a additional loop, which is going to run right around the front of the station, and it will go around behind, in front of another set of platforms, and it'll link down to the points in the background behind this train of J&As here. Now, all this is part of my grand plan for the layout. Typically in my planning style, there's a few things that move on as I'm actually building the layout as well. So I'm changing some of the things as I go along. I mean, the original intention was just to create a bay platform at the front, along the front edge of the layout here. But having thought about it a little bit more and talked about it and looked at the options of how the layout would actually work with the total track plan, actually it really made sense to turn that into a additional loop as well. One of the really good parts of that is actually when the whole layout's built and you're able to go down to the second level and come back up, that actually if a train is coming back up from the lower level, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a moment, it'll be able to run up round the back of the layout here, come to that point and run into the back loop of the platform there, and it can be held there to wait for another train to come round on the top level, or it can be just let straight along the main loop and head down the layout. Having talked to you about the station, I think the next point to talk about really is the depot area just to the left of me here. Now, you'll probably recognise that this is a new scene on the layout. If you've read the latest issue, you know a little bit more about it as well. The idea here was to combine the original goods yard that I built for Topley, which has its original track plan, its original track as well, all the original points and point motors are in there. But to combine that with an actual depot scene as well, which has meant changing out one point here, right in front of me, and then installing a new set of track into the depot, which is going to use one of the PGM modelled kits that we have available from the Key Model World shop. Now I've got the main structure of that building is already built. It's now got to the point where I need to actually finish off a few little details, and I can actually get that into paint as well before adding all the windows and window frames into it. But this has given me lots of space for locomotives to be stabled on the layout, particularly in combination with the yard over here as well. Now, the yard's also going to have a fueling point built into it. I've got one of the West Hill Wagon Works single track fueling points, and that's just waiting to be finished and painted and installed into this area of the layout. But I've got a little bit distracted from this at the moment because I've got so many other things going off behind me as well. But the aim is that, well, as it is now actually, this depot can contain about 17 or 18 locomotives, which is a pretty decent amount. That does make it very full though. Now, one of the advantages with the layout being DCC controlled is I don't need any section switches to manage any of the positions of the locos here. They're all fed by the DCC system. All the tracks are permanently live all the time as well. So I could technically have, well, I've got about 17 locos in here now, somewhere around there. They could all have their sound switched on. It'd be a little bit loud though, but that would give me a full operational capability to do whatever I want to do. It's like, for example, you can see these locos in the shed with the lights on. That's because there's power into those tracks all the time from the DC feed. Now there is another little element that I'm going to build into this as well, and I've already got the kit here. I'm just waiting in my queue of many things to build for the layout. I'm going to add in the Westhill Wagon Works loading bank here where the class 33 and 37 are. I thought it would be just nice to add a little bit more interest into the depot. Another little feature where you can run a loco in off the main line, take it into the depot area and then set it back onto the load bank as well if I wanted to do so. It's very much about creating lots of options for operation as well as trying to introduce little features that I might have seen whilst I'm out and about. So one of the things to mention whilst we're in this area is I'm just starting to work on my plans, and mainly in my head at the moment, about what I'm going to do in the foreground here in front of the depot. So I've got plans for lots of detail to go into this area in front to actually create a nice yard area. And then actually what I'm also looking at is potentially extending the baseboard width around here as well. Just create a little bit more space for the scenery here. So I have space for the loading bank, a little bit of road in front, and also create all the access for the fueling point, which is just going to be here with the stabling siding. But I think at the moment it's all coming together quite nicely here. I've got lots more things to do here. I've got to install all the point motors underneath all the complicated junction that's just in the background there, but it does all function at the moment. You can run trains through it. Well, yeah, I'm happy with where we're going at the moment. So having looked at this area, what we're going to do next is just move on a little further down the line. I'm going to take a look at the latest modifications to my bridge scene. So moving along the main line of the layout, the next little feature you'll come to is this bridge scene. This is very much still an in-development part of the layout, but my latest change is to adjust how the baseboard and the riverbed actually all fits together. So the original design, it really dropped the baseboard right down and it put the frame quite low. But what I realised was with my plan to have the layout with a gradient running underneath to take trains down and back to the storage yard, was the depth that I had beneath here was just too much. It was starting interrupting with what I wanted to do in terms of tracks going underneath this area as well. So essentially what I did, I took away all the framework that's underneath. I adjusted all the design and brought the flat panel that made the base of the river up much higher, so it's much closer to the bottom level of the main baseboard frames. I've then kept all the structure at the top the same, so that's got the brick walls in there. It's also got the starts of the footpaths on each side as well. Then I'm going to add in the Larsen shuttering again, like I had it initially when I first designed this as well. But I'm going to cut that down in height, so it's much closer to the height of what's required to make this scene look right. But then what I'm going to have to do is make quite a lot of effort really with the riverbed here to make it look realistic. But I think I can make it work, so we'll see how that comes on. Obviously I've got the first GCR bridge built and in place already at the moment, and then I've just got a spare bridge deck at the moment in place on the other pair of lines. I'm still trying to decide whether I'm actually happy with this arrangement or actually I want to change how these bridges look and in terms of design and style of the track layout going through them as well. There's a couple of options on the table. One is to stay as I am, where two lines diverge and swing round to go through the second bridge, or actually to take the current GCR bridge out, move it across one line space, and then put the two main lines straight through the middle and have separate individual track bridges either side of it. Or the third option is to start completely again and go with a completely different style of bridge. I'll have to see how things pan out on that. This isn't much of a priority at the moment. I've got lots of other things happening around the layout which are, at the moment for me, just a bit more important than this. But for now, it works. Trains can go both ways, and I can enjoy seeing things pass through one of these GCR bridges. Right, next stop, the junction and the start of a gradient. We've continued our way around the layout now to a scene that might be familiar, which is the original place where we had the double junction which broke off to take the trains around the original diversion route which formed part of Topley. Now, hopefully, it'll be clear that things are going to be quite different here going forward. So the main lines here in front of me, where the cement trains come in round, they're on the level, and they'll feed round into the main 12-track storage yard on the top of the layout behind me. But then, as you can see where the 4145 is here, with its rake of Mark 1 stock, that's actually on a gradient now. So this is the starting point of a gradient that which will take trains down here, take them right across the other end of the layout, round the other end, and then eventually they'll be coming underneath where the class 40 is here, and then they'll pop out on a different level on a section in front of the main storage yard. Now, this is quite a complicated process for me at the moment because I'm trying to modify a baseboard system which is not really designed to do what I'm trying to make it do. But it's starting to come together now. I've planned it all out. I think I'm going to have some adjustments to make. So at the moment, all this is just screwed in place, which means I can lift the screws out, adjust the baseboard levels, fiddle things around until I get exactly the right gradient I want through all this. I think I'm going to need a couple of the supports underneath to hold it in the right position. And then hopefully it's going to look really quite interesting here, where you have the trains coming up the gradient from on this side. So you have trains coming up on one side and trains on the level on the other side. They'll be able to kind of pass each other on different levels, so that should look really nice. I've also started building all the tunnel portals here as well. So I've got the Great Northern Tunnel Portal, which we do from the Key Model World shop. That's probably going to make the entrance to go into the downward gradient route, because that's going to disappear off scene at this point and go behind the tunnel mouth into a hillside. So then next to the Great Northern Tunnel Portal, I've got the new Watford Junction Tunnel Portal, which actually was originally designed for Pete Waterman's Making Tracks layout. They're now available as well from the Key Model World shop, and that's going to make the entrance point to go into the main upper level storage yard. In front of that here, I've got a little test rig here we just used to test some of the new West Hill Wagon Works overhead catenary system, and they're on the magnetic bases, so they can actually lift these gantries out of the baseboard if we need to do so for any maintenance or anything like that. And then next to them at the moment, I've also got one of our Helpston single box kits, and I'm debating with myself whether it might be one feature too many at the moment. But one of the things I'd really like to do is have a level crossing running through here, but I think it's going to be quite tricky to get it to fit in across the change of the baseboard levels and things as well. I was originally thinking of having a level crossing a bit further round on this curve, but actually when I thought about it, it's in completely the wrong position because it would go across the middle of a goods loop. It's just not going to work there. So this will be the only option if I want to go for a level crossing scene on the layout at this point. But either way, I would keep the signal box in because I really like the signal box, and that can be controlling all the junction operation around here. A little bit of a nod to original railway signalling styles. Now, talking of signals, you'll be able to see there is a semaphore still on the layout at the moment, but that won't be staying. All of this area will be converted to colour light signalling in the fullness of time. Don't know when that timescale will be, but that is the plan, to have it converted all to colour light signalling. But I would plan on having the route, once it's gone through these tunnels, when it becomes on show over there, that would go over to semaphore signalling to give a slightly different feel to different parts of the layout. There's some other exciting things to show you, so let's go and have a look at those. So first things first, the storage yard. So like I said, this is the top level storage yard. All the tracks now fully laid, it's all working. I've got a couple of final jobs to do. One is to drill all the holes for the point motors, but I'll make sure all my track formation was going to fit together first. And secondly, there's a bit more cork that needs laying at the far end. But it is now a fully functioning, fully working 12-track storage yard. It's meant some of my track space is quite tight across here, but I was really keen to maximise the number of trains I was able to get in this top level storage yard. So at the moment, I usually have around 15 to 20 trains on the track at a time in this. Nice long lines as well, particularly these outer tracks. Give me plenty of space to have lots of long and realistic formations on the layout. Beneath my arms here is the start of the gradient going down, which goes the opposite way around, which would eventually spiral down round through the lower level storage yard, come back up and meet up with the gradient we're looking at before. Now, this runs down at 1 in 75 on this side, and it will soon be ready for the track laying to start on this. And what I need to do, gradients are quite a tricky thing to get right with the model railway, and what I want to do is make sure that I test it as I go, and if there are any adjustments to be made, I can make them sooner rather than later to make sure everything's going to run nicely. And I'm particularly keen to test this section before I go too far, because actually this is the easy bit for construction and laying of the track, because it's all visible and on show. But once it gets around to the other corner of the layout, actually the gradient's going to be underneath the main scenic boards, which is going to make it all much more difficult to make modifications if I've got the gradient levels wrong at this side of the layout. But as long as I get all this right and I test everything and I check that the heavy trains can restart, come up the gradient and things as well, we should be looking good, hopefully. Again, much easier using the modern locomotives and the heavy freight trains as well than it is, for example, with steam locomotives. Steam locomotives tend to be a little bit weaker on gradients in terms of haulage capacity, but I should be able to demonstrate all this fairly soon to you and show you some different haulage capabilities as well. As you can see, there's lots going on, but there's still another big piece that I want to show you, which is just starting up on Topley as well. So this is the next big part of construction for Topley rebuild. So this is a brand new scenic section which is going to be built on 2.5 foot wide baseboards, which is reusing original boards I previously made. It's going to sit right in front of the upper level storage yard, and it'll actually be fed by the gradient coming down. It's going to come across this viaduct, which will then cycle round and work its way all the way back round, going down a gradient all the way, and it will then end up where the MPV is now underneath, to bring the main line underneath there, which then take it all the way around through behind me. Then we go all the way around again to get to the low level storage yard, which will be just in here below the top level storage yard. From there, that will then feed trains all the way back round up to the top. But this will also have a nice big quarry in it as well. So where this third track is underneath the bridge here, that'll be leading into the quarry sidings, which will be just behind me. So we should have a really, hopefully, interesting scene here. Like I said, this is big construction now, lots of things happening to bring all these elements together, so it's going to take a little while to get all this built, and I've got a lot of thinking about gradients and planning about structure and things to do along the way as well. I've got this current temporary bridge here just as helping me to plan the layout and design what I'm going to do. I've figured out the radius I need to come out of there from in order to get the curve into the bridge, and I'm now starting to think about actually what height I need the bridge and how I'm going to manage continuing the gradient across the bridge as well. So there's lots of things to consider with this layout, particularly with the gradients as well. That's making it quite complicated to build. The good news is, though, that I've got that plan coming together. I've got an idea of my track plan. I know exactly what I want to do in terms of getting the track round to here. I've measured it all. I'm going to have to measure it all again, and I might have to measure it a third time after that as well to make sure I get everything right. But what hopefully I should end up with is by the time the railway gets down to where the MPV is, it should be a little bit higher actually. So what I'm hoping to be able to do then is make this into a real multi-level scene here, where you'll have the top deck with the railway here, you'll have another deck with the railway underneath, coming underneath a little bit higher than what the MPV is now. Then hopefully that will go across the top of another bridge here, which will feed a river round and underneath the railways going underneath the viaduct. So a real proper multi-level scene going off here. Hopefully that will all look good as well, but we'll see. One of the things I'm particularly keen on with the quarry as well is one of the things that I really liked the quarry that I built for Topley, but it was much too short. There wasn't enough space for a decent train to be in there. There weren't enough space for a head shunt to be able to shunt wagons back and forth. So there'll be a much longer head shunt on this, looking at sort of a 5-6 foot long head shunt on this this quarry scene. There'll also be a nice junction across into the main lines where trains can come across into the quarry scene. And then I'm also aiming to make sure we have a full length siding down here as well, where we'll be able to get at least a 12, maybe 15 wagon train of modern wagons into the sidings. So hopefully that gives you a nice insight into what's happening with Topley. As you can see, there's lots of different things happening all around the layout all at once, typical me when I'm building a layout. My main thing, as always, has been to get trains running around the top deck of the layout so I can enjoy running some of my stock as well. And I'm now really working on getting all those main construction elements so I can then start moving on to make some of these scenes actually come to life properly with proper scenery again. It does look a little bit of a patchwork quilt around the layout at the moment with all the different areas in different states of repair and different states of progress. But in the upcoming updates, which I'll bring to you on Topley, you'll be able to see more of the progress on the layout, and hopefully each time I show you it, you'll feel like I've made progress and that big things have happened as well. But I'm pretty sure the next update will be focused on this area here and getting the layout actually more operational. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this update on the progress on the rebuild of Topley. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.